It's Saturday, October the 14th. And it's time for the 14th day of Halloween. Today, we're talking about the legend of Sleepy Hollow. Sleepy Hollow, New York was settled in 1640 and is one of the homes of the famous family, the Rockefellers. If you don't know the Rockefellers, they're part of the reason why we even have an educational system. And at one point, they owned a buttload of New York. But the Rockefellers weren't the only famous resident of Sleepy Hollow, as Washington Irving, the author of Legend of Sleepy Hollow, also lived there and is buried in Sleepy Hollow Cemetery. Before he died in 1859, Irving actually wrote many works, including The Devil and Tom Walker, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, as well as Rip Van Winkle. The residents of Sleepy Hollow are actually quite proud of their literary history and have made a booming tourism industry surrounding it. Every fall, tourists come from all over to see the many museums, including a living history museum set to the year 1750, as well as other Sleepy Hollow museums. They also have the spooky cemetery tours where you'd be able to see the grave of Irving. They also have haunted hay rides, as well as dramatic readings of the Legend of Sleepy Hollow held in the Old Town Church. Now, for many of these events, if you do plan on attending, make sure you get your tickets early because this year's haunted hayride is already sold out and it doesn't even start until October the 20th. In recent years, Sleepy Hollow has also tried to perpetuate their tourism appeal by hosting a Sleepy Hollow Film Festival, as well as developing many appealing shopping centers. The story, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, is set in 1790 in a secluded glen outside of Tarrytown, New York, called Sleepy Hollow. The residents of Sleepy Hollow are plagued by paranormal activity, and they're not sure what's fueling it. They just know they see specters and all sorts of mysterious things happen. The mysterious lore was part of what attracted Connecticut and highly superstitious educator Ichabod Crane from Connecticut to be the new school teacher in Sleepy Hollow. Crane found the lore of the town fascinating. He enjoyed very much gossiping with the many women of town and was pretty popular with them, as he also helped take care of their children and did odd jobs around farms and homesteads. Katrina von Tassel was the only daughter of one of the town's wealthiest farmers, and she had caught Ichabod's eye. However, he wasn't the only person interested in her, as a very strapping young boy who was a local named Brom also fancied her. Now, the obvious friction between the two men when they realized that they were both vying for the affections of the same woman did cause problems, and Brom was a bit of a bully, making fun of a lot of Ichabod's oddities and his lean and lanky build. Crane wasn't going to let the competition deter him, as he was very interested in Katrina, not just because she was appealing looking, but because he wanted her father's money and the status that it would provide him as an outsider within the community. So, he attended a fall party being held at the Von Tassels. Upon mingling with people, he heard lots of different stories about that immediate area as he worked up the gumption to pop the question. This didn't work out too well for Crane, though, as his advances were rebuffed. After his failed proposal attempt, Crane left the party and began to ride back to town. He's distracted and a little disappointed as he's returning to his quarters and is quite a ways down the road before he realizes he's actually passing several of the places they had discussed at the party as being haunted or spooky. He had just come to this realization as he passed a lightning-struck tree that was presumed to be haunted by the ghost of Major Andre, a British spy who was working with Benedict Arnold. Crane is very on edge as he passes the tree, and shortly after, he comes upon a hulking figure in the road at a crossroads in a spooky swamp. Dismay turned into outright panic as he got closer to the figure and realized that the figure's head wasn't located, as is tradition, on the shoulders, but rather sat in the saddle. Panicked, Crane drove his horse hard towards the bridge on the edge of town, trying to flee the mysterious figure. He heard the hooves gradually receding, and as he looked back in terror, the horse is reared up and the rider is hurling his head towards Crane. Crane is hit, tumbling off of his horse and into the dark swamp surrounding. The following morning, the horse named Gunpowder is found grazing in his master's yard, but there's no rider, no Crane to be found. The story ends with no Ichabod Crane, and many accusations going around that perhaps Brom had done something to him as he got to marry Katrina. Or perhaps Crane fled out of shame at the denied proposal. And that's the legend of Sleepy Hollow. As I recall from the last time I read it, it's actually a bit of a hard read because the years that's occurred since it was written and the changes in language. But it's a good read. Brightest blessings, y'all. Have a good one.